There's a common word going around right now for some of the feeling that we feel. Adam Grant and some others have been speaking in the public square and talking about this word and this idea of languishing. And so I want to come back to that and talk about the 4 keys to human flourishing and how to find your flow. Hey, make sure you go down to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy and take the 7-minute business owner healthy assessment. It'll be a very, very eye-opening opportunity for you. We had quite a few people take it last week, actually, at the Dallas Build Expo, and it was a really, really good metric for their business. Hey, listen, life and business necessarily intersect. In the last 13 weeks, we've seen births, divorce, death, war, inflation, new hires, sales records, con artist, cancer diagnosis, treatments, remissions, birthdays, renewed vision, record monthly revenue, and record monthly expenses. We've seen all of that in the last 13 weeks just in our community. There's a word that's being suggested in the public square of psychology that I mentioned, and that's the word languish. And the definition of it is simple: to lose or lack vitality, to be forced to remain in an unpleasant place or situation. Adam Grant says it's not burnout because we still have physical fuel. It's not depression because we still have hope. So what's that unpleasant place that's creating that? Is it war? No. Is it inflation? No. Is it COVID? No. What's causing us to feel weak and withered or to feel languished is distraction. We are willfully allowing ourselves to be separated, pulled apart. That's literally what distraction means in the Latin, is to pull apart. We've all felt pulled apart before. Think about when a relationship either ends or goes soured. We feel pulled apart, and the nutrients of that relationship begin to dry up. Makes me think of a time C.S. Lewis said this about one of his friends in the Inklings group that he and J.R. Tolkien were a part of. And he spoke of his friend Charles Williams. And he said, "Now that Charles is dead, I shall never see again a Tolkien reaction to a specifically Charles joke. Far from having more of Ronald Tolkien, having him to myself now that Charles is away, I actually have less of Tolkien." This is our new reality, and with it, we must find new ways for each of us to flourish, new ways to remain attached and ignore the things that will distract. Now it's time for something different. It's time to pivot, to stop staring at a ball of fire that was the last 2 years, and to see what has melted down, turn to ash, and begin to till that into the soil of something new. I learned this in a book by Johann Hari called and I've just lost the focus on it. If you can believe that. It's ironic because the title of the book is Stolen Focus. And this is what he says in the book. We check email 74 times a day. We check email 74 times a day. And yet we vigorously defend that we have to, right? He also said that we switch task every 10 minutes. Well, of course, because we're checking email 74 times a day. And Dr. Gloria Mark, who is an associate professor at the Donald Bren School of Information and Computer Sciences at the University of California, Irvine, she did a research project, and out of it, they found that we don't have work days. We have work minutes that last all day. And then the study found that it takes 23 minutes to get back on task to the same level that you were at when you got knocked off by a simple buzz or a simple check of the email. I keep saying that, but we're really not doing anything different. Adam Grant suggests that we not fight languish with optimism. That's empty. But instead that we fight languish with the harder discipline of flow. So what is flow? Well, Johann Hari wrote it down in Stolen Focus. I love the subtitle of his book, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Begin Working Deeply. In his book, Hari describes flow as a state of mind when you are so absorbed in what you are doing that you lose all sense of yourself, and time just seems to fall away, and you are flowing into the experience itself. Flow is not focused on results. In fact, sometimes the outcome can bring a bit of sadness because the project's done. And you look at the project and go, wow, I really loved the project regardless of the outcome. We don't know how to prioritize the limited resource of time we have. So we've got to ask a different question. How do we find our flow? Well, let's take the word flow, F.L.O.W, and put it into an acrostic, and I think it can give us some insight. First, with the F, is we need to recapture our sense of fascination, the sense of desire. John Gardner wrote this, "The renewal of societies and organizations can go forward only if someone cares. What does that mean? Somebody's got to have a desire. They've got to care, and that's how we can all be pushed forward. Johann Hari says, when your mind wanders, it starts to make new connections of elements that are already there. But when we don't allow time for mind wandering, then those elements can never come together. Hari interviewed actually a neurology and neurosurgery professor at McGill University, Dr. Nathan Spring, who said, creativity is not where you create something new that has emerged from your brain. It's a new association between two things that are already there. Go back to email. 74 times a day, we forfeit the opportunity for our brains to make connections of impulses that are already there. The L of flow is like-mindedness, this idea of people and culture. Like-minded people aligned in principles and values tend to move together. So what's the catalyst for like-mindedness? Well, ironically, it's challenge and uphill battles. I'll never forget a guy here locally, Joe McNamara. He said, nothing brings people together like shared adversity. Shared adversity. But as long as we have that shared adversity with predictable and repetitive communication, then we can find our flow. So what's the third element of flow? Operational process. In your head right now, you long-termers that have listened to our message are rolling your eyes thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't new content, operational process. You guys preach this all the time. You're right, but we cannot afford new content around the area of documented process because without it, life swims in an endless pool of amnesia and we waste our time starting from scratch every day. No, we need to capture operational process. See, small business is notorious for making it up as we go or shooting from the hip, and we react to every impulse that comes our way like that inflatable tube man on the side of the road. Except the tube man actually has us beat. At least the tube man is tethered to the ground. Process brings boundaries, and boundaries bring freedom. You want the freedom to flow? Then capture the process, own the process, and share that process and repeat it. The final element of flow, it's a wealth that you can draw from. That's what the W stands for, is wealth. You can't operate from an empty tank. You can't help others if you've got nothing to help them with. And I'm not talking about just money. There are three different types of wealth that we've got to focus on. One, obviously, is the financial wealth. For with it, we have access to open doors that can benefit more people. But maybe more importantly than that is intellectual wealth. For with it, we can open minds and influence decision. Hari, again, in his book Stolen Focus, writes that 57% of Americans now do not read a single book in a typical year. The historical Thomas à Kempis says, everywhere I've sought peace and not found it except in a corner with a book. This is attributed to Mark Twain, not sure if he said it, but those who cannot read are at the same disadvantage as those who do not read. The third wealth, relational wealth, for with it we can open communities. Without wealth, walls are erected, not boundaried walls of principle, but secluded walls of isolation. There is a reason that we are empathetic. When we find our flow, we begin to flourish and liberate ourselves from chaos and make time for what matters most. You can start right now. Go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy. Take the 7-minute assessment, and you'll start to get a metric of how you're doing with your flow.